Welcome to Wealthy After 40. Ready to ditch debt, retire sooner, and live life on your own terms? Only 54% of Gen Xers feel prepared for retirement, and 22% believe they will live a comfortable lifestyle. So if you're feeling like your finances are a hot mess express, you are not alone. I'm Daylene Higgins, founder of Elevate Finances and money coach for Gen Xers. I reached my dream of retiring at 50 while helping our daughter through college, and now I want to help you do the same. It's time to stop avoiding your finances like the plague and start having confident conversations about money. Join me every week to talk about personal budgeting, debt payoff, saving for retirement, money mindset, and leaving a legacy for future generations. Okay, friends, let's talk money. Hey, Gen Xers, imagine a life where you control your money instead of it controlling you. My 4-month signature program, the Financial Freedom Accelerator, was created to help you learn the basics of budgeting and saving so that you can live a life without debt, have your money work for you, secure your retirement, and build a legacy for your loved ones. Let's face it, spending hours of your time trying to figure out where your money went is not serving you well. But I promise you, you don't have to keep dipping into your savings every month to pay that phone bill. What you really need to do is head to my show notes and book a free 60-minute one-on-one budget breakthrough session so you're no longer burnt out from your budgeting attempts, and instead, you'll be saving yourself time, money, and tears. And because you're part of my podcast family, when you book a free call with me and mention Wealthy After 40, you'll get a special $200 discount for my signature program, the Financial Freedom Accelerator. Head to the show notes now to book that call and enjoy the rest of the episode. Welcome to today's episode of Wealthy After 40. I'm so excited for today's guest. Steve Mullen is a connection we made through his podcast. So let me just have him share a little bit about who he is, his podcast, and what he does.
Sure. My name's Steve Mullen, and I am a public relations pro. I'm a professional podcaster, and I met Daylene because I have a kind of a pet project with my wife, co-hosting a show called Caregiving Gen X Style. We're a couple of Gen Xers who find themselves taking care of their elderly parents, and we know that's a relatively common thing for people our age. So we started the show up just to it's cathartic for us, but also one of our biggest goals is to just let people know that they're not alone in that. And we have gotten some good feedback lately that I think we're doing that. I think we're managing to succeed with that because people are saying that, it was just great to hear from somebody in the same situation. So, we do a show every 2 weeks, and it's usually on a different topic having to do with taking care of your elderly loved one.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. And I loved especially what you do at the episode is you kind of give the update of how moms are and what experiences. Yeah. And, it's being on the flip side of my caregiving journey, like those experiences are what continue to help you proceed and move forward. So I don't know if you want to do that, but how is mom today?
She's doing really good. Yesterday afternoon for a couple of hours, I go to visit a few times a week. She's in assisted living. And, she's doing pretty well. I'll give you a little funny story. Actually, it's a preview I'm probably going to mention in our next episode, but they do Wine Down Wednesday, where they serve wine in their little bistro, their little cafe. And my mother typically doesn't go, but yesterday she said, well, so-and-so keeps asking me why I don't come down. So let's go down. You can have wine, or if you don't want wine, you can have whatever you want. And I'm not a wine drinker. But so we sat down, and it was kind of like being at the popular kids table in high school, because there were 5 ladies there, and they were some of the more with it residents there. And that includes my mom. She's pretty with it. And just listening to them grouse about everything there, basically. And you could tell who the queen bee was. And it was just an interesting experience, let me tell you.
Yeah, that's fun. It's crazy how even in the later stage of life, we still have those very social cues and social norms that are going on. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Assisted living is high school for wrinkly people. It's
I
true.
love it. I love it. And I love that that's just a little insight as, Gen Xers to kind of think about it in that respect, and hopefully if that is a shift they have to make with their, loved ones, that they'll kind of remember what Steve said. Oh, this is an okay place. So I love that. I love that. So while we did the episode, well, it was as we were getting to know each other, Steve shared with me his story about choosing to pay for his kids' college. And we'll get into it a little bit further. So, what I want listeners to take from this episode is not necessarily that this is the course of action, but more of the thought process and the impact of him making this decision so that you can create the own thought pattern for yourself. So, Steve, I know we talked about it. You have two kids. And when was it? I know you had told me, but when was it that you and your wife kind of experienced this? Oh, what are we going to do? And explored the paying for college?
Sure. Yeah, we have two kids. One's 21. She's graduating college in just a few months. And our son is 19. He's a sophomore at college right now. So, this has been some time back. The kids were pretty young. I mean, I think they were both born when we first started talking about this. So you're looking at, 18 years ago, probably. And we started realizing, well, we need to think about putting some money aside for college. So, we sat down, we talked to our financial advisor, and we talked to each other. And, my wife and I come from very different backgrounds. I was extremely fortunate that my parents paid for everything for college. And it was particularly good fortunate because it took me 6 years. So I was on the 6 year plan. After a transfer, I lost a whole bunch of credits. But my wife, on the other hand, her parents she's a child of divorce. Her mother couldn't pay for it, and her father wasn't really involved. So she took care of everything between grants and loans and scholarships and everything else. And she did have some small loans when we got married and started thinking about having kids. And I had noticed when I was in college that the people who were paying for their own college had more of a stake in it. And, I'll admit I screwed around a lot more than I should have. But the people who are paying for it realize, this is something that I'm paying for, and I better do a good job at it. So we made the conscious decision that we were not going to pay for everything. And frankly, I'm not sure we could have. So we figured out what can we do, and we came up with a plan that would basically our hope was to cover at least the first 2 years of their school. And we've done that with our daughter and then some. The investments with the 529 went pretty well, so we were able to go beyond that. Our son wants to go to law school, and we've already told him we'll take care of the first 2 years, and then after that, it's loans and scholarships and grants, and you'll have to worry about that yourself. And we help out every place we can. I mean, we take care of the books, we take care of that stuff, and help with groceries and whatnot. But we want them to have, like I said before, have a stake in it, and that was our conscious decision.
I like that. I also had to pay for all of my college. I chose to pay for my daughters. I only have one. So in a position that, is different than maybe some other people. But I know you had also said you wanted to enjoy life, but not take away from your retirement. So if you can speak a little bit about that, and then also like maybe why you chose the 529.
Sure. And yeah, it's all tied together. I mean, yes, we could have paid for probably every cent of their college, but what that would have meant was that our retirement would have been negatively impacted. We wouldn't have been able to put enough aside for ourselves. And, we want to have a nice retirement, and I think we're on track to have a pretty good one. But I'm not sure how that would have worked if we were doubling what we were putting down for our kids' college. We did decide on the 529 just because of the investments. In our state, there is a state-sponsored 529 plan. I honestly have no idea if that's a common thing or not. But the way that works is that the minute you sign up, they tell you, okay, here's what you pay every month, and it locks in the cost of college at that time. So if you start it when your kid's 2, you'll be paying for their college in, that year. The problem with it is there's no flexibility, because if you pay less, it just ceases to exist. So we decided to get our own 529. That way there was some flexibility where, if things were a little tight, we could dial it back for a month. And we never really had to do that, thankfully. It came close a couple of times, but So that was we just wanted that flexibility, but also the benefits of the 529.
Yeah, I like that. And then I know when you sent information about the podcast episode re-recorded, you said we just pulled out our final payment for
Yes.
our daughter.
Oh,
So,
it feels good.
and explain like her situation, financially, what is she looking at?
Well, so she is in nursing school. She will have assuming all goes well, and I think at this point I can't, I'll knock on wood a little bit, but I don't really see things going that poorly. So she has, she'll finish up with her bachelor's of science in nursing. She'll take her certification exam, and then, the good thing about nursing, while it doesn't pay a ton of money, you'll always have a job. She's already interviewed for a job, in fact, despite the fact that she doesn't graduate until May. And, the pay is pretty good. You're never going to get rich off of it, but it's a good starting payment. And we had the benefit of with her, she's actually going to have a lot less loans than our son, a lot lower loans than our son, because, and even forgetting the law school portion of it, because she's a saver. And honest to goodness, where she gets that from, I'm really not sure. We're savers. We don't live extravagantly. But this girl puts away money like nobody's business, just between little part-time jobs, babysitting, dog sitting. By the time she got to college, she had $15,000 in her savings account, which was really impressive. And she does work at the hospital as a tech, the one that she hopes to work at, full time soon. So she was able to, what we did with her, she moved into an apartment for her junior year. And we sat down with her and said, look, you have enough money where you could start paying your rent. And I know you don't want to take it out of your savings because I know you like your savings where it is. But if you do that, we're not taking it out of your 529, which means your loans will be lower. And it turns out she's going to have almost $10,000 left over in her 529 when she graduates, which can then go straight to her loans. And I don't know the exact number. She's got $24,000 in loans. So that'll take it, not quite in half, but close. And suddenly that becomes a whole lot easier to get rid of. At that point, you're looking at a price of a used car, which she should be able to knock down because she already has a car. So, that worked out really well. And I've talked to friends of ours who are dealing with this. They've got, I was actually just talking to a good friend of mine over the weekend who's got a daughter who just went into college, and he's trying to figure out ways. He didn't put anything aside at all. And his initial thought, and he had said this to me, he said, well, it'll be all loans for her. It's on her. It's hers. And it's okay, well, if that's how your family wants to do it. Now they're kind of backtracking on that and they want to help her out. And she is moving into an apartment. And I said, look, if she's able to even pay for part of that rent, that's money that's not coming out of your pocket. And you're able to, if she's in an apartment, you can cut the meal plan and just give her grocery money, which will be a whole lot cheaper. So, there are things you can do even while they're in college to try to reduce the cost out of pocket. And we figured out some of those things. And, moving into an apartment, we figured out, and this, I'm sure this isn't, going to exactly work out with every school, but the cost of living in an apartment for 12 months is about the same as living in a dorm for 9 months. But when you live in the dorms, a lot of times they require a meal plan, which those are insanely expensive. Even the small ones are just ridiculous. So, I mean, again, there were some things that we were able to do with her. So she's not going to have near as much liability for her loans as we thought she would.
I love how you've done that and educated her along the way as well. Mm-hmm. And you didn't have to create a savings that would hopefully cover everything. But once you got there, you were able to mitigate some more for her, some more for mm-hmm. you. So I know when we talked, so this is about your son. I know as we talked about degrees. We talked about, because he's going to law school, which is another 3 years. And I think you and I kind of share the same philosophy in this. And I just want you to kind of, explain how you were guiding him through, those expenses and those decisions.
Well, the first thing we told him when he said he wanted to go to law school is that you really should make sure that your undergraduate degree is something that is marketable without the law degree. And, he initially thought, well, a history degree or an English degree. And believe me, I am not bashing those degrees, but they don't necessarily directly lead to a job. So what he's doing, he started out doing criminology, which I actually preferred to what he switched over to. He switched over to political science, but there are a lot of things you can do with that. So that was the first thing. Now, the second thing is, you know, he's going to have more loans. There's just no way around it. Even if he doesn't go to law school, he's going to have more loans because his college is a little more expensive. And he's got a nice scholarship, but they require you to stay in the dorms all 4 years to keep it. So we're going to be doing at some point, his senior year, probably some kind of cost benefit analysis. Is it cheaper to lose the scholarship, but save the money on an apartment? From what he says, he's heard of a lot of people that do that try to figure that out. And you don't save money that way at his scholarship level. So, we'll have to figure that out. But some good advice that we got when our daughter was I think it was her senior year of high school. Her high school had an advisor who came in specifically to help out with prep for college expenses and such. And, I told her what our plan was, and she said, okay, well, that amount is not bad considering what a nurse gets paid to start with. It's a manageable loan. She's not coming in with a salary of, $70,000 or $80,000, but loans of $150,000. That's not happening. Our son will have higher loans, but also, at least in theory, a higher salary possibilities over time. So, we don't love it, and we'll help out however we can with him. But, the fact is we can't do much more than we've already done.
Yeah, I know I had my share of student loans. I say that loosely. I don't know if I already shared with you. When I was doing my first couple of years, I was living at home. I was working full time. So I was going to school part time, and I was using their short-term loans. So I'd have to pay half up front, pay the other half in it was about 10 weeks. And so working, I was able to accumulate it and paid it just fine. So it was almost just like a pause or a delay. And then when I started university, it was shorter weeks. So they were on terms. And so not as much time, and the cost was higher, right? Going from a state college to a university is a different cost.
Mm-hmm.
And so I applied for a student loan and I was denied.
Oh.
And because my dad made too much, but my dad didn't make enough to help me, right? And I was also working as well. And I'm like, okay, that's great, but we don't have the money for college. We are living just fine. And so I literally took out a signature loan, personal loan.
Mm-hmm.
But because I was just a few weeks shy of being able to pay it in full, that was paid off fairly quickly. But I know more recently, some of these student loan servicers have not been vetted, I guess, or qualified.
Right.
So how have you navigated that and avoided that? What advice would you give to somebody who their child is going to have to take out student loans, all or part? How can you support them and give them advice?
I'll tell you, I don't know much about personal loans. We have been fortunate there are two types of the federal loans that are offered to you, or are offered to your student anyway. There's the federally subsidized loans and the federally unsubsidized loans. Please do not ask me the difference between that, because I am a communications person. I don't do numbers. I don't add, I talk. But I know I asked about those with that advisor at my daughter's high school, and she said, if you are going to have loans, those are the loans to have. Fortunately, we didn't need anything beyond that. The loans ended up being, I think, a few thousand, $3,000 to $5,000 a semester, which is how it worked out to, actually, no, I think it's worked out to be less than that, probably around three. It worked out, like I said, her total loans will be about 24,000. So in those loans, you don't have to start paying them off until 6 months after you graduate. They're relatively low interest, a relatively low payment if you can't pay anymore, but we will strongly advise our daughter to pay as much as she physically can just to get rid of these things. You hear these nightmare stories about people who walked out of college with a $50,000 loan. They pay the minimum for 10 years and the loan hasn't moved. And it's because you're paying the minimum. And I know, there's a lot of people, that's all they can do. We don't want her to be in that situation. So again, we'll help her work out a payment schedule. And and she should be able to, make sure she has a roommate and hopefully keeps her old beat up car running so she can get to work and take the bus if she needs to, and just keep her expenses down for a couple of years or a few years until she can get rid of that, and then she'll have that money freed up maybe to get herself a nice car or something.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I know when I had my loans, because I did get traditional student loans later on, that 6 month grace period is very nice,
Mhm.
for different ways. I mean, I was working full time, so it's just like, okay, accumulate it and then pay what you can. But I know when I was making the payments on some of them, like my loan was only for 10 years. So I don't know how that fell or if they were different then than they are now. I did also have unsubsidized and subsidized. So, yeah. What are your advice to people who are exploring costs of college? Do you have a couple of tips to get them started?
um I think teach your kids to manage their money as early as possible. Our daughter is really good at that. She doesn't really go out and do a whole lot. She shops for clothes at thrift stores. She's got like I said, kind of a beat up car that runs just fine. Our son's a little bit more of a challenge. He likes to go out and buy new things, but he's getting better about it. But, them learning to manage their money, particularly if you tell them that you'll help out with expenses while they're there, it's going to help you down the road. And I will say that's another thing that we told our kids. Look, if you want to go out to dinner, if you want to get a pizza while you're at school, if you wanted to go do, some fun stuff, that's on you. That's your money. That's not our money. And if you don't have the money, then you just don't go do it. You have a meal plan, or we gave you grocery money, or however it worked. And I think they've done pretty well with that. They both have had jobs. We didn't want them working their freshman year, but sophomore, junior, senior, they have jobs of some kind where they make some money, just if only for gas and pizza money or whatever it is. And beyond that, I think, like a job is kind of important. I think a part-time job, if they can handle it. Obviously, the school is the most important thing. And if they are the type of kid who, if they need that extra time, then unfortunately, you probably just need to give them a little bit extra money for that, because really the education is the most important thing. Our daughter, like I said, she doesn't do a whole lot other than go to school and work. Our son is the flip side of that. He's in a fraternity. He's got a girlfriend. He's got a job. He's got a leadership position in the International Fraternal Society or some such thing. He's actually in Indianapolis right now at a conference for that. So he does a lot of stuff. Fortunately, his grades are good. He was on the dean's list. He's been on the dean's list 2 out of 3 semesters, and he just missed it the other one. So, as long as he's uh, doing well in school, we have no problem with all that other stuff, and it'll look good on a law school resume. So, and I think being involved is really important as long as it's not going to break the bank. The fraternity thing, by the way, something that I didn't know this. Fraternities obviously cost money, and we told him, you want to join a fraternity, that's on you too. It's $500 a semester, and if you want to do it, you're going to pay for it. And he's gotten some benefits out of it already. I wasn't really a big fan of it to begin with, but I see it now, particularly in the line of work that he wants to go into. Having those connections is a good thing. And it's a big national fraternity too. So that will hopefully help him. So, other than that, I think, like I said, managing money is a big thing to teach them, because it's going to help you when they get off to college. Because hopefully you won't have that call on a Saturday afternoon. Hey, mom, I don't have any money. Hey, dad, can you float me $50 or whatever? So hopefully they're managing it themselves.
I love that. And I love the interactive managing that you're doing as well. It's important to, they have to learn it. They can't just be
Hmm.
go, oh, okay, go make it happen. It's definitely, money is a beast in and of
It
itself
it
if we
is.
don't
Well, and
learn
it's,
it. So
and if they learn now, they won't have to learn it later. And we were talking on my podcast about our topic, which, by the way, the show I didn't mention earlier, the show with Daleen came out early or late January. Late January, last Tuesday in January. So anybody wants to check it out, they can. But anyway, what we were talking about was taking care of your elderly loved ones and try to make sure you don't go broke while you're doing that. And one of the things we talked about was parents who don't know how to manage their money, because clearly they never learned.
yeah.
So hopefully, if you do it, if you help your kids now, they'll be better down the road.
Yes. Yeah. So true. Well, thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
Probably the best way to listen to the podcast is just to Google Caregiving Gen X Style. My name is Steve Mullen. Again, I do produce podcasts professionally. If anybody wants to hit me up about that, they can go to my website, which is endgamepr.com, endgamepr.com, and there's a contact me page, so you can get in touch with me about that.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time today, and thank you for having this conversation with me. And listeners, we'll see you next week.
All right. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for listening. Every week, my goal is to help you get one step closer to financial freedom and making confident decisions so your money starts working for you. Having a community of support is important to your financial success. I would love to have you join me in my free Facebook community, All Things Personal Finance. Inside this group, every live training, action challenge, and posts are filled with tips and strategies to help you progress to financial freedom. If you have questions from today's episode or want to learn more, follow me on Instagram at Elevate Finances. If you're looking for personalized support to get your finances on track, check out my website at elevatefinances.us to learn more about how I can support you with one-on-one coaching. Thanks and have a wonderful day.